Piece of the planet, you know what it is. Adisa Banjoko chilling the most on Bishop Chronicles. It is Money Monday. We're on schedule with David Frazee, demystifying wealth, demystifying Silicon Valley, here to demystify your money needs and concerns. All right, welcome back to the show. How you doing, David?
It's been a long week, but I actually look forward to this a lot. So this is my break. This is my break.
No. I agree. Totally. So let's kind of jump into stuff with a slightly different angle. Like, I know we've talked a little bit about taxes and stuff like that before. And you started to discuss a little bit, but I wanted to open with this idea that, a lot of people still don't really understand how tax codes benefit different groups, right? Like, if you know where you kind of belong in the tax code, you can make things work for yourself. So, like, can you show like an example of how the tax code works for a married couple that's saving? And, tell me about that a bit.
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I think I told you a story when one of the early sessions we did where someone said, I don't want to make more money because that puts me into a higher tax bracket.
Right.
Somehow I'm going to pay
people tell me that.
all this money. So I'm going to put up on the screen here. I'm going to take a hypothetical couple that makes $160,000. So if you look in the red box here, that's married filing jointly. By the way, if you are married, you should do your taxes every year on TurboTax. Like, buy the version you can download so you can play around with it. Do it married filing jointly and then singly. So each of you file separately. Sometimes it's like a $7,000 or $8,000 difference. It should not work that way, but it does. Like,
yeah.
With my ex, we always modeled both, and one year it was this way, one year it was that way, and it was.
But so help me understand. Like, if I do it married this year and then next year I do it separate, do I get in trouble?
Nope, you can do whatever you want. You can go back and forth. There's basically three categories roughly.
Really?
There's single,
right,
married filing jointly, and then head of household. So head of household means you're basically, taking care of kids, and there's certain qualifications. But so I'm just going to focus on married filing jointly. So they make $160,000. So if you look at this chart, that puts them in the 22% tax bracket. So you would think that they're going to pay $35,000 plus dollars. I think it's $35,200 is 22% of 160. And if you thought that, you'd be wrong. And I want to walk you through.
I said you'd be wrong.
You would be very wrong. And people do believe this, by the way. So I want to dissuade this. That sounds like a lot of tax. That's 22% of 160. That's a lot. So let's break it down here. So they're both W-2. That means that, by the way, there are people I know that are not part of the U.S. tax system. So I'm going to explain some of these terms.
Right. That's
a W-2 is the form that employers use to report income that they give to employees. The government basically makes you withhold and report. That way they get taxes. If people self-report, no one pays. So if they have your money, you have to file to get it back, then suddenly the collections go way up. So in any event, $160,000, each of them is a saver. So they have a 401k plan at work. They're each putting the maximum $24,500 in. So that's $49,000. That brings their what's called adjusted gross income down to 111. So 160 minus 49, 111,000.
Right.
And their standard deduction for married filing jointly is 32,200, which means their taxable income is not 160, but 78,800. That's a little less than half.
Ooh,
so let's look at the actual taxes. So they pay on 0 to 24,800, they pay 10%. And for 24,801, so for every dollar above up to 78,000, they pay 12%. So the calculation here is, what is that? 8,960. So they pay a little under $9,000. If you do the math, that is an effective tax rate of 5.6%. Meaning if you just average it out, they're not paying 22%, they're paying 5.6. Remember, it is progressive, where you pay a low rate on the first tranche, a slightly higher rate in the next tranche, is slightly higher. So it's to your advantage to make more money. It's also to your advantage to try and lose on paper as much money. That's what the rich do, but that's really not what we're talking about right now.
Right.
But I want people to understand that this is progressive. And although it wasn't an intended part of what I was going to do to answer your question, if you're married, look at the taxes both ways, because there is a huge penalty sometimes for being married. And in some years, there's a huge penalty for being single. So
right.
It's math. You can do it either way, and just whatever.
He said it's math.
Whatever adds up to the most money back in your pocket is what you
exactly. Whatever gets you the most cash. Right. Yeah. All right. So, what if, because we talked about capital gains, and it's really funny. One of my friends hit me and he was like, hey, as soon as I heard David talking about capital gains, I knew he was legit. But then that made me wonder, like, what if all you have is capital gains?
Yeah, like, people do this, by the way, where they try and figure out how much, and it gets complicated in just a second, but just for the easy one here, let's say you have no earned income from working.
Right.
And you make $128,000 from selling stock.
Okay.
And you've held it for over a year.
Right.
So it has to be long-term capital gains. When I say capital gains, everyone always means long-term, because short-term capital gains, meaning you buy and sell under a year, is the same as ordinary income. So that's not what we mean. So let's say there's no employer contribution because you're not employed, right? So your adjusted gross income is $128,000. That is, remember in the last example was under 80. So this is like $48,000 more money, right? Yeah. So they should pay a lot more tax. However, you would also be wrong. So again, so you're wrong a lot, man. Get with the program. The married filing jointly standard deduction is $32,200, which brings their taxable income down to $95,800, and you can see that up here on the chart.
Damn. So
you are in the 0% tax bracket for long-term capital gains.
Really?
Up to, and you actually have some room to spare here because you're not in the 15%. Remember, it goes 0 and then 15%.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's under like 98,900. So you have room to spare. You are paying $0 in taxes. So you've been up with more money. I mean,
what if you have both?
Yeah, and that's where they kind of ding you. So
he's like, and that's where it gets crazy.
The short version is they stack it. So they look at your ordinary income first and then your capital gains. So just to go back to the first example, couple makes $160,000, but this limits give them $90,000 of capital gains. That's $250,000, $250,000. We take off their 401k contributions, which is almost $50,000, so now they're $201,000.
Right.
We give them their standard deduction. Now they're $168,800. You have to break it down. The ordinary income portion is $78,800, and the capital gain portion is $90,000. So if we do the calculations, which we did before, they're paying the same $8,960 on the ordinary. I know this is a little fast.
No. But I'm with you though.
But here's the trick. That counts toward the part that it chews up some of that exemption for the capital gains because you stack it. So remember, the 0% goes up for capital gains up to 98,900. Well, 78,800 just got used. Okay. So you only have 20,100 of 0% long-term capital gain space left. So that is tax-free, but the rest of it's taxed at 15%. So that means, your total long-term capital gain tax is $10,500 roughly. And you're not above $250,000, so you don't pay the 3.8% surcharge for the Affordable Care Act. So you pay an extra $10,500 in that case on the $90,000.
That's a lot.
And it's not that bad because the effective tax rate on the capital gains is like 11.5%, 11.65.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still pretty good. But remember, the effective tax rate, if you don't have ordinary, is 0 for that same amount.
Yeah.
So you're likely to have both. And of course, the government wants to get you out of that 0 as soon as possible, which is why they count the ordinary. But it does illustrate that if you primarily have capital gains, as wealthy do, you're still at a much lower rate because a lot of it's 0, then it's 15 for a long time. Right? Whereas, everyone else is going up 22 all the way up to 35%. The rich have better lobbyists.
Yeah, clearly.
Warren Buffett always talks about, why does the secretary have a higher tax rate than he does. And this is why.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I had a guy hit me up. He's like, I'm loving the show. But he, a lot of people are just trying to like use a bucket to like get as much water off the sinking ship as possible. And he was curious, like, what is the single biggest mistake that most people make when dealing with looking at how to recover?
I mean, assuming you have the ability to have excess income, because that obviously is the predicate for this. Either you need to make more or spend less. And I'd like to turn maybe, after the Q&A today to how we start to make more. But once you're in that position, the biggest mistake is people spend first and they invest in what's left over.
Right.
And there's nothing ever left over because you spend it.
Yeah. Because
you need to invest first and then spend. Yeah. I mentioned 1/3 of spending goes to things people don't think about. We don't think about the small leaks. We can afford anything, but not everything. And let me just back this up with some data for a second. 54% of American households have zero dedicated retirement savings. Under 35, 54%, over half of households have no retirement savings.
So everybody's just treading water.
Yeah. If you're under 35, your average retirement savings is $11,250. Half have less than $3,240. Half have less than $3,200. If you're age 25 to 44, half have less than $4,700. Only 20% of households have a Roth IRA, 20.5%. It's literally tax-free money at retirement. It is the best deal out there.
It is best plan in the game.
I will push that all day long, health savings accounts being the asterisk. But yeah, Roth,
yeah.
1 in 5, that is it. Only 37.3%, which is like 3/8 have any form of IRA. Only 1 in 5 take their full employer match. Like, that's free money. That is free money being left on the floor.
On the table.
Half of Americans over 55 have no retirement or pension plan. So we got to do better. We've got to do better. And just not to interrupt for a second, but I want to get this out here, is people, when they do invest in things that aren't as good. So there are studies where they ask people, what is your favorite thing to invest in?
Right.
And so I just quiz you here. So how many people say gold, bonds, cash, or crypto? Like that whole group together. Like what percent of people say that's their favorite thing to invest in?
It's weird because I'm hearing it more and more now, but I also feel like that's a generational thing. So I'm going to say like 25%.
45.
Okay.
How about real estate? Is their favorite thing to invest in?
I'm going to say that's probably the biggest one. Because people think real estate, you're renting, you're making money. Well,
what's your number? You got to give me a number.
Oh, you said that was 40 for the other one?
45 for, yeah. And by the way, real estate is the biggest. I just lumped gold, bonds, cash, or crypto into one.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say like another 45. Like that they're even. Like
37%.
Okay, not too bad.
So here's the kicker. We know the correct answer is stocks is by far the best. How many people prefer that as their favorite way to invest long-term?
I think that's probably,
I should clarify.
I bet you that's like less than 10. I was going to say like 7%.
Yeah, 16%. 16%.
Okay.
So I should clarify, favorite long-term investment, like you're trying to store money for the short term.
Right.
So gold, which underperforms. Bonds, which is literally terrible. Cash is the worst thing you can do because it loses money. Crypto. By the way, a fun fact, when you're a gambler, some gamblers do win, by the way, but who's the only party that always makes money in gambling?
The house.
The house. The reason you open the casinos is for, I live in Vegas. The reason we have the pretty lights is all the people that lose money.
Right.
Real estate, 37%. So stock, which is by far and away like a large multiple of all these other things, only 16% of people favor for long-term investment. There's such a catastrophic misconception. And as a country, we are robbing ourselves of millions of dollars systematically.
I think it's cool that you're doing this, man. Honestly. But now, okay, so here's something that's interesting. So, in the last show we were talking about, like, if you spend a lot of money on where you live, like it could be problematic and stuff like that. And, it's really interesting because the country, but especially the Bay, is always kind of undergoing like a new level of layoffs and da da da. But then there are some people that are able to tread water while making very little money. So like, if somebody's only making like 50 G's, like, is building wealth realistic for that person?
Yeah, that's hard. That's in the zone where you're surviving. Like I had mentioned previously, if the poverty rate truly kept up with everything that went into it in the 1960s when it was first calculated, it would be higher than this. Like this would be the poverty level, using the same methodology. But
yeah,
well, it depends on your family size. If you're single, it's a little different. You can, but you have to be extremely frugal and have a low cost place to live. I mean, the biggest thing which is destroying people, and you mentioned the Bay Area, is housing.
Housing in the Bay is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say you can't see the house I live in from just this shot here, but like I could buy a cardboard box under the underpass in Northern California. For
what you got in Vegas?
This is nice, but so when the housing costs are above like 35% of your net take home pay, things are really difficult. So you got to get control of where you're living and everything else in your cost structure. It's much easier, of course, to add income. If you can, be married or be in a partnership with somebody and split those resources. But once you have enough that you're making more than you're spending, then saving power determines wealth.
Right.
If you have two people making even say $40,000 a year, who are both savers and put 15% away every year because they managed to do it, they'll be millionaires. Easy. And the professional athlete who just signed a $28 million guaranteed contract will be bankrupt, when 3 years out of when he's playing in the National Football League, or the law firm partner or the doctor. So saving power is absolutely crucial to this. And it also matters when you start. So if you can even do 200 a month, starting at age 25, you'll have over $500,000 at retirement. If you can do 400 a month, double that.
No, I like that.
I mean, it's still math. So start sooner, do whatever you can, even if it's small.
And just keep going.
But I'm not going to be naive here and say, anyone can become a millionaire, because if you're just struggling and can't make ends meet, it's hard. So you need to find something that allows you to have surplus income. And that may mean getting new job skills, having side hustles. One of the questions someone asked me about this same topic, in the last few weeks is, I'm not going to phrase because it's slightly profanity laden, but basically, what a jackass I am to be telling people, just go earn more, you'll be fine. When the problem is the actual post-capitalist late stage economy, which means people are in the gutter. And I can't debate the structural system that we have. And I've explained, by the way, previously, the way we change laws, Congress enacts it, the president signs it, Congress is elected by people who show up do the electing, not people who stay home and, send me those kind of texts.
Right.
You have to vote.
You got to be in the.
But in the meantime, this is what we got. So I'm trying to tell you what we can do with the hand we have.
Right.
And I do have other ideas of how to increase wealth through exponential, thinking and impact and entrepreneurship, which we'll get to in the next few months. But in the meantime, this is what you got. So you can complain, or you can figure out a way to come up with 200 a month and then 400 a month and control your living and increase your income. Because math doesn't really care, and the economy is not going to change just for you. Like, victim mentality may be rational and justified by the facts, but nobody cares.
Yeah, it's true. The fact that nobody cares is the biggest data point, right? Like, one of the things I wanted to run by you though was, I remember, I think it was on the last one, you talked a little bit about like staying away from like financial advisors, or like trusting them too much. Is that because if you just leave it in the market, everything's cool? Is that because of the portions that they take from whatever you make? Like, what is your...
Well, you got to ask yourself the question, if someone's charging you, that's money you're not investing. So even a 1% fee over 40 years can be almost $800,000 to $1 million or higher if you have more.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Number two, when they're selling you things, how are they being compensated? By the way, it's something I teach in my classes that I teach when I teach about entrepreneurship, and also a lesson for my kids, is people become their economic incentive set. You do what rewards you, right? So what are they going to sell you? They're going to sell you what gives them commissions. So they could be selling you whole term life, or they could be selling you financial products where they keep the spread. They can be selling you guaranteed bonds where they put it in the stock market and get the 11% while you're getting the 6%. Like the woman I met in London, I've mentioned a few times.
Right.
And that's how they make their money. They don't keep it in bonds. I mean, they go invest it in other things and they sell you the bonds.
Right.
So you're throwing money away because you can do this yourself. And
right.
I
it's just
mentioned
the fear and anxiety of botching it that makes people kind of lean into the advisor thing.
Yeah, no, of course. And by the way, if you do need help, hire someone who has a fiduciary duty, meaning they have an obligation to act in your best interest, and also a flat fee, so they don't have an incentive to sell you garbage.
Right, because you're paying for this stuff.
And unless you're $5 or $10 million, you probably don't need it, because if you just do the simple things here, you're going to do better. I mean, I've told the story that, I would be approached by all these high-end private banks like JP Morgan and Goldman and everybody. And, they had all these services and all these fancy things I could do. And some of them were quasi-illegal, like some of the offshore insurance trusts where I mean, I don't need the IRS audit. Thank you. My life's complicated enough. But what I did is I wrote out, here's all my financial attributes. If you come up with a plan, I can tell you what I do. If you can beat what I'm doing, you have my business. And no one even came close. Because the drags on what they're selling just took the results down so much.
Right.
And you can do most of this yourself. Just keep it simple. I mean, if you're a business owner, it does get a little messy. I will give you that. And even that's explainable. And we should do a class. Maybe
you can still navigate it.
Yeah. Well, after we do the small business part, we should do a tax part at the end of that. But you can do this yourself. Just follow these rules. It's not that hard. I mean, when you're at a point where you'll need an advisor, you're going to be so confident you won't want one because you did it by yourself.
But then what about this idea, right? Like, okay, so I'm driving down the street today. They had a place the other day. I think Scott Budman on NBC 11. I think it was him. I'm sorry, Scott, if I was wrong. Posted a gas station somewhere in the Bay that was pushing gas for like $7.15 a gallon. Okay, a lot. Okay. And so when I look at that, like, it looks like things aren't good right now financially. Okay. And every week, again, we've talked about the layoffs and stuff like that and the cost of housing. Right. And so like, I was thinking about this last week, actually. It was like, what if I go ahead, I put all this stuff together and then the market crashes the way it looks like it might? Like, it seems like that's going to be like a bad time to having,
Yeah, and people will watch this for years potentially, but this is being taped in March 2026 when the U.S. is at war with Iran, and Iran is shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, cutting off oil supply for the world. Yeah. So, oil futures are over $100 a barrel. I mean, it's crazy. And who knows how bad this is going to get, because we have no plan in Iran. We're just going to, it's the bombing of the month club.
Yeah.
To,
totally.
distract from the Epstein files. Cause
as much as possible.
And, it must be really bad for this one. So we're cratering.
Before you get to the bottom of that stack of, damning papers.
Hey, we're tanking the whole world economy, no pun intended, over this.
Exactly. So, right.
But look, these things actually are anticipated, and they're bumps. Look, in 2008, the S&P 500 dropped 50% and it tripled.
Right. Now, how long was it between when it dropped and the triple hit?
Well, it's actually more today. I mean, within 10 years.
Wow.
The thing is, but that's a good point. Money you need in the short term, don't put primarily in equity.
Right.
You again, this is one of the things I emphasize multiple times through this is you put it in like 3 buckets. The short term money that you can't lose, the medium term where you have some plans, but they're not immediate and you can take a little risk. And,
right.
And you can self-insure effectively because you have, you have resources. And then there's the long-term money, which you're not going to touch for over 15 years. Just let that ride. And you want to be buying when there's volatility. You want to buy when things are on sale.
Right.
So just keep buying. Just throw your money in. Don't look.
Yeah. Just let it be. Okay.
No, I mean, the worst sin is keeping it in cash or not investing or buying something that, like some of the things we talked about earlier,
that's one of the things I think the most guilty of is when I do have it, I just kind of sit on it and then something happens. So I go, you know what I mean? It's not.
Well, if it's below your like safety threshold of your your emergency savings, like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, depending upon your situation. High yield savings account or a bond fund.
Yeah.
They're mathematically very similar. There are differences. I do know that. But for most people, you don't need to stress about that.
So then I should just invest in the market. I shouldn't think about other things to invest in.
For long term, yeah. I mean, if you want to learn a particular asset class and become an expert at it and you can beat the market, go for it. I mean, that's why venture capital exists. We beat the market.
Right.
Certain private equity funds can beat the market, but you have to be good at that.
Really
For
good.
most people, the thing that makes the most sense is be safe, be steady, and keep investing. You know, I was reading this article recently where there was an argument why women own homes more than men do, why women have savings higher than men, even though women earn less than men.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is what makes men very successful as entrepreneurs, take big risks, you know, outsize crazy visions that aren't tethered to reality, because some of them become true. Women are just saving and putting money away and playing it safe. But safety actually pays off here.
It does.
And so, you know, for everyone who is a successful entrepreneur, being a cowboy, 99 fail. And you don't look at those people. You only look at the success stories.
It's true. Yeah.
And, you know, as a foreshadow, part of my thesis on how I teach entrepreneurship is I will show you how to take the risk out. I will effectively, if you follow the stuff I teach, you can't screw up too badly, because you will always build something people love and need and want before you really put a lot of money into it. And you'll have revenue and margin and a product market fit. So you may not become a billionaire, but you should be okay. You should be okay, because you're not going to scale until you nail it and know that it's something people want. That's not the way business is normally taught, but it actually is the way that top venture funds think and the top startups think. We don't tell you that. We pretend it's something different because it's a more exciting story, but what we do and what we say are very different things. How's that for a tease?
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, you know, I got a guy, he's 45, he's got 3 kids. He doesn't really have any savings. And he's like, you know, is it too late for a guy like me?
Yeah, it's obviously would have been better 20 years ago.
Right.
But you can start now. Even 20 years of compounding builds serious wealth, and you're not going to die at 65. You got years left. I mean, our life expectancy is much longer now. If you own a business in particular, or you can become a higher earner, there are ways, especially after 50, to catch up on, you know, putting extra money in. And for business owners, there's all sorts of crazy things. When we do I've mentioned this before, but when we do the business section at the end of the entrepreneurship chapter, like you can have your own 401k, your own employer match, because you're your own employer, you work for yourself, your own defined benefits plan. You can put $240,000 a year. And then if you're married, over $400,000 into retirement. You can like just sock that thing and let it compound. Now, of course, you have to have money to do that, but there are mechanisms to rapidly catch up, and you can still build assets at this age that are exponential and have value. Like there are tons of entrepreneurs who are older. I think I've said this here. If I haven't, I'll just say it again. In my venture fund, we have 10 investments and 4 that are now worth over $1 billion, and maybe a 5th on the way. We'll see. We have 0 entrepreneurs under the age of 40 as CEOs. 0. They're all over 40.
Okay.
I mean, this is the big kid club. I mean, we build real companies that solve real things. So you have lots of options.
I like that.
Life isn't over.
Okay.
I mean, if you were living in the Stone Age, your life expectancy was 18. So it was
right. So
it's
rough.
We're not. You're living
It's a hard knock life.
Yeah.
Now, what about people that are in marriages or long-term relationships, and maybe they both don't know anything about money, or maybe one kind of does and the other one doesn't? Like, how do you start to have those conversations about money?
Well, I was about to make the joke. One thinks they know about money and doesn't, but you know, but that sometimes people do know about this stuff. I'm being a little facetious,
or at least they have the good intent.
They have a good intent. I mean, a very common fact pattern is when couples attend my programs, the guy is usually arms folded, scowling, being on my case most of the day. And by the end of the day, he's like, I knew all of this already. And,
Right.
but he didn't. And he was,
Right.
if you actually look at their investments, it's a lot of things that make no sense. If,
Right.
if you're
Right.
just
Right.
trying to play the safe route. So just again, a few things. Your life partner is the greatest influence on your financial outcome other than just being born wealthy, right?
Right. Right. Right.
You need to understand money scripts and the psychology of money and agree on goals. You may not agree on that. If you don't have that agreement, going to the priorities chart, watching the classes together, building a plan together, budgeting together is not going to work very well.
Right.
Because you have to do those things, but agree on goals first, and you have to come up with some compromises potentially. But sometimes it's not, they're just a spendthrift and they have no self-control. Maybe that love is the way they were shown love, by gifts. And
Right.
that's their love language, and that's what they think. Or money has this meaning because their family went bankrupt and they're a hoarder and don't want to take risk. I mean, whatever it is, you got to suss that stuff out. So I would watch these classes, not just with your spouse or partner, but with your kids and with your friends, and do it as a group. Make it a regular activity. You really should, because
Makes sense.
getting people to understand what it means is the first step. And the second step is then you use the priorities. Okay, we're going to agree to go through the order of what we did. Let's do a financial assessment as to where we are.
Okay.
What are our debts? What's our income? What are our assets? What's our net worth today? Are we in the red zone? Are we in the orange zone? What should we be making as our priorities? You have to make choices. I don't think I've specifically said that, but you are making choices of priorities. You can have that new car this year, or you can get rid of all your plus 15% interest bearing credit cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a choice you're making. And, you're going to have a hard life if you don't do things right. Do you want hard now or hard later?
Yeah. No, it's real.
And, I often, it's a stereotype culturally, but I often find that it's actually true where a couple has very different money scripts. And that's been my experiences. Most people I've dated or been with, in long-term relationships have very different views of money. And that makes alignment hard.
No, that makes sense. Earlier you were talking about the value of Roth IRAs, and I think you've mentioned them at least once a show, or at least every other. So why are you so hell-bent on it again?
Yeah, and I don't get a commission from the Roth people. By the way, Roth was a senator from Delaware in the U.S. Senate who came up with this. So that's where the name comes from. Yeah. But Roth IRAs, you pay the tax on the money. Remember earlier I had that example where you start with $160,000 and you reduce your taxable income.
Right.
Here's the opposite. You're gonna pay your taxes on the money and what's left over you buy the Roth.
Got it.
So you don't get to deduct it this year. However, when it's compounded all these years and you take it out, all of it is completely tax-free.
Okay.
The gain, okay. And by the way, you can also take the principal out without penalty. Don't do that. Just really don't do that. But if you have an emergency, like a medical emergency, that's at least an option.
Okay.
I mean, if you take out from your, some of your other accounts like your 401k, there are hardship reasons you can, but there are penalties for doing so.
Big penalties,
and you get nailed for it. So I don't recommend it. But again, 1 in 5 has this, but it's the best deal you have. And if you have kids that are working, because by the way, you have to have earned income to contribute to a Roth. So you can't just set a Roth up for your 2-year-old. I mean, some people try and they say, "Oh, my infant is a baby model, and I'm paying them $2,000." Don't do it. I actually wish they made this just the default. You should just be able to set up Roths when people are born. And then there's some plans that are very similar to that. And depending upon when this is witnessed by people, some of those may be law, they may not. But I don't know why everything isn't tax-free when withdrawn.
Right.
Honestly, or at least at capital gains rates, because we want to reward people for investing early. I mean, it's the greatest single thing we can do to save Social Security because it won't be needed as much. It's the greatest thing we can do to reduce poverty, especially among the elderly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it makes a lot of sense.
And it start encouraging the right habits in people. But no, a Roth, it's tax-free when you take it out. I'm just going to keep saying that.
No, it makes sense.
It should be 100% of households have this. But everyone should have a Roth. Make your 19-year-old their first job, set up a Roth. Even if it's $500, just get them in the habit.
Yeah. But everything you're saying and have said and whatnot, when I watch the videos on the site, it does make sense. But then if it's such common sense, why isn't it that common then? Like, why don't so many people actually either A, know it already, or like, I've been doing this like for real?
Yeah, well, I think was it Voltaire who said common sense isn't so common.
True.
I go back again to the Warren Buffett, Bill Gates interview where Bill says, Warren, why doesn't everyone do what you do and they'll all be millionaires? And he says, people don't get rich over time because they all want to get rich quick. So there's that human psychology, and especially men. I'll just pick on us. I mean, we want to get rich quick. I'm a venture capitalist. Like, I get the dopamine hit. I'm not, not throwing stones in a glass house here.
Right,
like,
right.
it's like I try and build billion-dollar companies in a few years. Like, I get the addiction of that. But for your money that you need to have to retire, get rich over time. Look, nobody teaches it. We learn from parents who don't know anything. We learn from our friends who don't know anything. We learn from pop culture. We learn from a financial industry which profits from our confusion and exploits us. We have fear. We're frozen.
Yeah.
We're intimidated.
Yeah.
We don't automate things.
We don't.
We play victim.
Yeah.
We do all the things that keep us poor. And the irony is, for most people, and I understand there's people who are very poor, and I will never poor shame anybody.
Yeah.
I grew up that way, and I do know some people can't save. I truly understand that. And I'm equally obsessed with how to increase earning power and transform poverty. So I'm not, I do get that piece. We just haven't talked about it yet.
Right.
But for those people who do have enough disposable income to even put a few $100s a month, you have this chance to transform your life and your kid's life and maybe your community. So we need to break the cycle. It's like the same thing with all forms of trauma, because economic deprivation is a form of trauma collectively, and it has a lot of the same physiological effects, by the way. No matter how you were treated as a kid, you break it. You break it. This is where it stops. Same with financial desperation. This is the time you break the cycle. Every time you saw your parents break down because of money and fight because of money and do desperate things because of money, this is your chance to say, and this is when it stops. It stops with me. But we can do better. Most people can do extraordinarily well if they're just slow and consistent. I just wish I could get to every person before they start.
Because everybody is like, and they're feeling that squeeze. Like, it's funny you mentioned this, because I was literally talking with a kid out of school the other day who's really good at math. And I was explaining to them, like, if they lean into the math thing, it really change their life. And, I was like, are you really thinking about going to college? Because if you are, I know some people, I could probably help you, whatever. But you could see that this kid and their family is struggling so much. Like, their head is like college schmollage. Like, it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I was like, I know the drive to have all the cash right now is real, and you know what I mean? But like, everything that really matters and lasts does take time. You know what I mean? But if you allow yourself to use these math skills you got, you can go places you never thought you could. But I could see that the loud screaming of the machine's need for right now was much louder than, and I understood it. Like, it wasn't like a judgment thing. So
yeah, no, and college isn't for everyone. I'm an academic snob a little bit, so I'm not going to shy away from that. But it doesn't make sense for everybody, and certain degrees don't make sense for everybody. And there are often great alternatives. Like, one of the greatest things California ever did was the community college system, which is a jewel. And
that is
people
true.
Go on. Like, I know someone who went to a community college in California, graduated with highest honors at Berkeley, and is now going to Harvard. It doesn't
One of my
matter.
friends started on a bet. I bet him he wouldn't go back to school. He went to a junior college, turned that into an opportunity at UC Berkeley, and he is currently going after his MBA. And it's a really cool thing.
And, community colleges in California are free for 2 years. I don't know all the details because I didn't go that route myself. But, and again, financial aid, if you're poor, is exceptionally good at the more elite colleges. Of course, you have to get in, and we can come talk about that in a future program. Because I've definite views on college admission that are contrary to these clowns you pay tens of thousands of dollars for. because I think they just make you boring automatons without
Yeah, it's
personality.
weird like that.
And
I always
that's the
wonder if that's
opposite.
is that a personality thing, or is that what the college process does to an aspiring head and heart?
No, well, it's because everyone wants to play it safe. You know, I'm just going to say, my first wife actually was an admissions officer at a major university. So I know way more about this than any mortal should. So I'll just say that. But we can talk about this more in the future because we should talk about education, but I'll just give my little standard like thoughts here.
Okay.
Admissions officers are just like you, but a few years older. And most of them are liberal arts graduates who couldn't find a job doing anything else. So they may be a history major or psych major and they're 27 and, they're reading 40 applications a day and they may read you at 2 a.m, after 4 months or they haven't slept, they got bags under their eyes. They're just like you. They want to fall in love. They want to stand up on their chair and root for something. They want to get excited. So what would make them be excited about you? So being boring and monotonous and doing the same damn thing as everybody else
is not okay.
Why would you bother? Take a risk and just be yourself, And, I have different theories of how you write your essays to show that you have a sense of humor, that you can be serious, that you can be analytical, side of the holy trinity of who would you want to talk to on a dorm floor at 3 a.m. for a few hours in college? That's who they want to admit.
Right.
Who would you want? What would make you fall in love with somebody? It's just seduction. You just want you want them excited that you have a mind that sees things other people don't, that you take risks other people won't take, and you're an interesting person who just cares.
Right.
And if you just do the monotonous, boring stuff and the same thing everyone else does, you're going to sound like the same processed cheese whiz as everybody.
That's a good point.
I'm not going to give the example because she may watch this, but a friend of mine hired a coach for MBA programs, which was like $20,000 a coach. And I read her essays and she's incredibly interesting what she's doing. Like it is cutting edge. It's important to the world. It can have huge impact. I'm not going to say what, although I'm trying to, but I just don't, I'm trying to protect the innocent here.
I got you.
As they say, some details have been changed to protect the innocent.
That's right.
And she got this coach and she made these boring essays that were just cookie cutter.
I hate that stuff.
Like the 3 leaves on a clover. The first is, my family. And the second is
like, oh, please.
What is this? This has nothing to do with your intellectual identity. Like you have something exciting. Just go for it.
Yeah. Go after it.
Anyway, of course you got to take care of test scores and in grades, because that matters a lot. And tests are teachable. I mean, they're corrupt, honestly.
It's true.
I mean, they're just a game. As long as you learn the game and see it as a game,
it's fine.
Kind of fun. But if you take it seriously and become paralyzed by it, you're going to be miserable. Anyway, I'm getting a little off topic, but going back to college for a second, if college isn't your jam and not what you want to do, be curious, be a lifelong learner, learn to leverage what you have. I mean, one of the greatest things about artificial intelligence, one of the worst things, by the way, is it's going to displace a lot of jobs. Because it's really good. It is really good. Like I'm the running joke lately is some people document, it's from my outside law firm, Anthropic and Claude LLP.
Right. Come on, man.
And it's good stuff. Like I don't know if your viewers know this. I used to be a top equity partner at 3 of the world's largest law firms.
I do know this.
So I do know things. And I'm looking at this like, this is really
that's nice.
Good. And let's find some stuff I missed. And this is better than most of my associates I hired. And we build you $800 an hour for. It's freakish. But the point is, it will kill jobs. It will create opportunity if you learn to create leverage.
Gotcha.
Like if it can make you more productive, if it can do the things that allow you to do things you're better at. I mean, think about asking questions for a second. There are famous problems in math, like Fermat's last theorem. Mm-hmm. You don't name them after the people who solved it. You probably don't even know who solved it.
Right.
There's a Princeton mathematician, Andrew Wiles. We know the person who named the problem. The people who come up with the new ways of looking at the world and asking the right questions and then leveraging the information that's out there will be the people who are going to be the stars of the next 20, 30 years. And so you should strive for that. Be curious, ask questions, learn the tools. They can be your friend, they can be your enemy. They're not going away.
Right.
So putting your head in the sand is not going to help anything.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Well, yo, man, thank you again for another incredible Money Monday. Listen, people, you already know what I'm going to tell you. Go to Demystifying Wealth. Go to Demystifying Silicon Valley. Reach out to David directly on IG. Reach out to me, and we're going to help all of us get better together. All right? Have a blessed one, David. Thank you. or another dope show. And I'll see you next Monday.
It was a pleasure as always.
All right, man. Take care.